Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. We're here with Brother T. I'm your host, Jason Keaton. Brother T, how's it going today?
Man, it's going good. It's going good. You know, I took a count. Today is episode 39.
I'm
39 episodes of Second Coming. No one left to crucify. I've got my co-pilot here. I don't know if you can see her. She's in my lap. But yeah, I'm doing great, man. And we're off to a roaring new start for the Happy New Year here, 2025. I'm actually very excited about the potentials I see for True Thought. Just some good things happening, to be honest with you. I think that we are in a good place. I think after almost 40 episodes, we're kind of getting our tech down. We're getting our ability to settle into what True Thought here, this episode, this podcast is. And it's beginning to take shape. And I feel really good about it. I feel good about it. So I'm going to do this and get rid of those because it puts shadows on my face. So how are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing excellent. 2025 starting off really new for me. A lot of new things. I used to be an airline pilot, and I'm kind of looking at doing things, something completely different, going in more into media, going into, media marketing with restaurants, marketing with businesses, doing commercials, something kind of like letting the old aviation just fade away and going completely both feet into media. And I'm really excited about it. It's scary. Because I've made my living most of my life in aviation, and jumping both feet in, you get a little bit of mud with the water.
Yeah. That's exciting. I think anything that's really, I've always shared with coworkers and people I've worked with over the years that if you take a new assignment and it doesn't at least scare you a little bit or freak you out a little bit, you're not on the edge of, you gotta get on that, and you gotta get outside your comfort zone. And when you get outside your comfort zone, now you're on the leading edge of learning. I really made it a habit after some time that when I would stay in a job for a period where I felt like I wasn't doing anything new, I would quit and go find something else to do. I literally shared this with somebody recently, but I've had probably 35 types of jobs, work that people make careers out of. And I did climb the corporate ladder, and then I left I left that. I became a president of a company, well, more than one over the years. But the point is, my last corporate job ended literally in 1999. And then, of course, I did some work with churches these last 10 years or so. But I left the church in earnest at the end of 2023 because from the perspective of being an employee or working for somebody, it was time for me to let that go. And so my new career, Jason, is, True Thought. This is my new home. This is my new career. And while it's not feeding my bank account, it does feed my soul, right? And this is where I feel called to be. And I congratulate you, man. We haven't talked about that together off screen here. So I just want to say congratulations, man. That's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Yeah. So I've partnered with another individual that's kind of a expert, and his strengths are complement my strengths. So we hope we can. Well, I guess we're gonna make it work, right? I'm gonna do more than hope. I'm gonna believe that we're gonna make this work. So that's what we're gonna. That's my 2025, and dedicating our time here with True Thought is a blessing to share every moment with you, Brother T, and learn from your wisdom and your readings and your seeings and your time with Spirit. And we've talked off camera how more and more every day your voice from Spirit is just really taking hold and guiding you in every moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, it's immediate now. You know, in the beginning, I would meditate for hours sometimes just to try to get control of my thinking mind. Now my thinking mind quickly slips to the back seat, my ego, and the voice of love, the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to use all of these words to try to describe it, but they're all synonymous. And in the Bible, it's really referred to as the Holy Spirit. And in A Course in Miracles, it's the Holy Spirit. But Jesus clarifies it there and says, well, it's nothing more than your right mind. It is you. And then I've shared, with our community that last year in some of the writings I did with our Substack group there that I had an experience back in 2014, and he said there, and I'm saying he because it's my voice that
Sure.
you're talking to yourself, and your higher self is talking to you in your voice, in your mind, right?
Right.
So it's hard to distinguish, and that was part of my aha moment. It was so subtle I didn't really know that I had been being helped and instructed, and we call it our intuitive self, that voice that speaks to us. And but anyway, he said, well, at some point you have to realize I am you. And I am realizing that now. I have moved just in the last few months to another level of surrender, for lack of a better term, and giving over. And it's challenging because we have to really let go of our commitment to our identity, who we think we are. And so, wow, there's a whole lot in there. I'm feeling a lot of emotion. I'm feeling a lot of emotion, right? Because it is a very emotional release of who we think we are. And we built our whole life around it. Oh my gosh, right? It's real. It's happening. So I did share, a story recently, with you that that I was talking to somebody that I didn't know. We only started, and I so to him I said, well, I am Christ. And now if I say that to you, I am Christ. That's difficult for the conditioned mind out here, because everybody's like, oh, Christ is God and Christ is separate, and you're never going to be that, and what we've been conditioned to believe through traditional theology. But this is not what we're talking about here at True Thought. Is not a religion. This is a pathway to self-realization. In other words, making your true self real to you. Doesn't matter who else gets it or gets in the way of it. Don't let anybody get in the way of it. And I've certainly done that. But my point is that it is happening to more and more people. I'm just one of many that are starting to awaken today. And it is a process. It is very much a process. It's a graduation. I like using that term because it's a graduation out of being committed to a small self, an idealized self that you've made up, because the ego makes itself up as this is who I am. And it tells everybody who you are. And somebody says, well, who are you? And you go into your litany and say, well, I'm a pilot, and I'm you go down the list, right? But Jesus shared this in the way of mastery. Are you willing to tell people, well, people say, who are you? And you say, well, I'm Christ. And people, oh, wait, you can't, I'm very uncomfortable with that, right? I am not God, but I am a piece of God, right? So and you are a piece of God. Everything is God. There's nothing outside of God. So these are some of the things that we talk about here at True Thought, right? And anyway, sorry for talking. I just going off on this tangent.
No, absolutely. I was just my meditation this morning. I was listening to believe it was chapter 28 of The Way of Mastery. And it talked about the knowing and heaven on earth. And, this is heaven on earth. We
The
are all
second coming.
Christ
That's what the second
consciousness.
coming
We
is,
are,
right?
yeah. And it's
That's what I mean. We're in the midst of it, and you are a part of it, and I am a part of it, and anybody that's listening to our voice today is a part of it. But I do want to preface it. I feel fearless when you're joined in spirit. You are fearless, right? But the number of people that actually are going to listen to this podcast is a very small number, and it doesn't matter, because this, I feel like, is breadcrumbs. If I do reincarnate again, which I'm not sure now that I will, but if I do reincarnate again, I'll be able to find myself here to teach myself to get back to where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Right. And what's amazing about the block that you just put in, and I'm going to call you out on it, Brother T, is Paul Selig did the same thing. He, with his conversation, he's like, well, I don't know if we even should be doing this, and nobody's going to read it, nobody's going to see it, nobody's going to hear about it. And how many millions of books has Paul Selig reached, and how many lives has he changed, and how many, through his conversation with guides and spirits. So,
Right.
so I'm not gonna say. Maybe today, maybe when we load it up next Sunday, maybe there's 20 people, but I don't know about a year or two from now. It could be a nice number in our community that we really connect with and we get to share our conversations with.
Right.
And
Well, I want to make a comment about that, because I know Paul personally, by the way, right? And I love Paul. But Paul was concerned about protecting the people from what was coming through him, because he felt responsible for how it might impact people and, whatever. I don't have any of that energy. In other words, I would love it if a lot of people got this information, and they're getting it eventually. We're getting it, right? I got it, so
Yeah.
if I can get it, everybody else can get it. You can get it, you got it. The point I want to make is I have no agenda other than to be here with you and allow spirit to come through and share whatever is coming, and then that gives me guidance. And because I go back and, we do the production work and we work on the videos and we compile the information, and every time I go back and listen to our videos, a dozen things are like, man, I wish I'd have said this and I wish I'd have said that, because I can understand the questions more clearly, et cetera, in retrospect. Hindsight's almost perfect, as they say.
Yeah.
But I don't have an agenda because it's not about money. In fact,
Right.
Spirit has given me a assignment that to teach the truth and to not charge for it at all. Period. Because the truth is priceless, right?
Right.
And that you're talking about career change for yourself, and I've actually started, working another system myself, which I've kind of been doing as a side, on the sidelines and not very serious for a long time. But finally, I'm getting clarity on that, and I'm just investing and learning how to invest properly, and it's feeding me, and it's giving me just a sense of 100% faith in God, 100% faith in Spirit. I don't have to worry about anything anymore, really. I'm living in a coach, right? And it's, in the 20s today where I'm at. And it's a little challenging, right? To keep make sure the water doesn't freeze up and, all that kind of stuff. But it does nothing. I don't have anybody to impress, right? I just want to say that I feel like Paul's motivations is much different than mine. Based on where I'm at now, and I think he's probably where I am too now. I think he's doing pretty well too. I think he lives in Hawaii, which is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I can move to Hawaii and we could do this. I could do this from Hawaii.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, Brother T, our new beginnings in 2025 are great. But my question today for you really is about endings, and specifically endings of relationships. And I know you've gone through relationship endings. I've gone through, a divorce before. My daughter just very recently, in fact, she's still in the very mourning stages. She had to walk away from a relationship where she lived with the person that she thought she was going to spend the rest of her life with. And it became very obvious to her that she had to walk away from that. And she mourns that in her heart still. And my question for you is, we have this egoic small self connection with another human. It's legitimately hard for this body to say goodbye, whether it's saying goodbye to someone that has recently passed or saying goodbye to a relationship. And I'd like you to address the ending of a relationship where it was a loving relationship and it ended.
Okay. Okay. Let's call in some guidance. Let's take a good deep breath now. The construct of the egoic mind, the default operating system of humanity, when we come into this incarnation, and Jesus calls it a tiny mad idea in A Course in Miracles, which was the genesis for what we're doing now, being human in form, right? Of course, we're not activating our heart. We're not activating our digestive system. We're not activating our breathing. We can notice it and have a little impact of our breathing, but beyond that, not much else. And the construct of that system is separation. The tiny mad idea is kind of like a game. We're playing this game, and it's called a game of separation. And when I think of this, Jason, what I say that, is like, okay, what would it be like, and here, just imagine two children of God, and the metaphor is, Adam and Eve, okay? Or you and me, right? Because on the other side of the veil, before we assumed physical form, before we incarnated here in form, we were in our true divine nature. We knew who we were. We know what we were. We know what our role is in serving God, which is to be an extension of God, right? We are not God, but we are a piece of God. And so we said, hey, what would it be like to pretend to be God? And there's no way to do that except in our imagination. And I do, I remember when we were children, we would throw a sheet over the clothesline and stake it down and camp out at night, when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. There was a bunch of us kids running around. My mom had a big family, a bunch of kids, so we could play together 24/7. We were pretending to be adults. So imagine these two children, Adam and Eve, if you will, pretending, and say, what would it be like to be God? In other words, to give everything meaning, because God did not create us to be thinkers. And so we kind of drifted off to sleep, and you can't do it without, the whole construct of our reality is that we were created in relationship, and you cannot be outside relationship. Period. 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 Cannot be. And so Eve couldn't do it by herself. That's part of the metaphor. She had to convince Adam to, in the story, take a bite of the apple. But that was just Adam joining with her in the intent to play a game of separation. And they fell asleep. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that they woke up, by the way. So when we fell asleep into this dream, this illusory construct of separation is the name of the game. And so the ego, rugged independent, the ego's whole construct is separation, and it gets to define and determine who we be. And so if somebody asks, what you're, who you are, then you're probably going to just start telling people who your ego is, has defined you to be, right? And that's playing God. It really is, in essence. And I'm just kind of adding that, but that's kind of the essence of it. So, when we see ourselves in another person, we fall in love. It's the beginning of the return to self-love, but we project it outside of ourselves, and we see somebody else, and we say, okay, that person completes me. I look around, and I'm a young man, and I'm like, I've got ABC, but here's what I don't have XYZ, and I'm not complete. I don't feel whole, and part of that construct is God designs all of these systems to regenerate, if you will, to sustain themselves. So we procreate, right? Create more of God. That's why we're here, is to create more of God. Ultimately, that's why this all works. Anyway, so there she is, XYZ. I see her over there. Or I see this other person, and that person, I see that they have attributes that I don't have, and that just excites me, and I feel more whole when I'm with that person. Does that make sense? And so I'm whole now because I'm in a relationship. Because God created us in a relationship, we can't really be separate. We're not comfortable being separate. I've seen recent videos on YouTube of people that are really, really, really struggling with being alone in their 60s. Women in particular, I think, are really struggling these days of being alone and just being in the house. And especially if they're no longer working and they're retired. And they're just talking to themselves. I mean, it's if we don't have somebody to share our life with, even that becomes a very difficult struggle. Anyway, back to the story here. When we meet that person, now we feel complete. But the ego's game and its basis of operation is seek, but do not find. And so we'll find another person, and we might even make a commitment to that person. We might even sign a contract. It's called a marriage certificate, right? To make a commitment, and that marriage certificate is a legal contract that protects us. That's part of the contract, is protect us from this person that we're in a relationship with, or to secure the relationship. Well, unfortunately, in today's world, because of our accessibility to technology, and 8 billion people are now on the planet, literally, the divorce rate is now over 50%. I think it's 54%. So now people are starting to ask the question, well, why would I get married? If the divorce rate, it's 54% likely to divorce anyway, why would I get married, right? Those are just statistics. Just to make the point, seek but do not find, right? But once we get on a spiritual pathway, we begin to see that our real relationship, and the most important relationship, and you've heard us say it here before, is your relationship with God, right? Because the point of being here in form is to wake up in form so that you can become the continuation of being more of God in form here. And in that process, the second coming is that manifestation, that resurrection of Christ's energy on planet Earth, right? And it's happening. It's happening. But when we are in our egoic construct, And the other thing that the ego is really vested in, Jason, is control. Right? So when we feel like we're getting out of control, we can't control that other person. They're not treating us the way they should. They're not respecting us the way they should. They're not doing this. I've got a whole list. Eventually, after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, however long it's been, we begin to say, wait a minute. I still feel incomplete. And typically, the ego might start searching for, instead of XYZ, maybe it was EFG. That's really what I needed, was EFG. I got ABC and I've had XYZ, but it wasn't really XYZ that was missing. It was EFG. And oh, there she is. I see her there. So we go over there. There's another person that is a supply now of love and relationship, right? And we just let go of the other thing, right? But anytime we lose somebody that we are in love with, and by the way, love doesn't come from the ego. All love comes from God. The ego tries to interpret it and manage it and control it, but it has no capacity to do that. And so its outburst and its way of controlling love is what is the other person doing, and measuring and quote unquote judging what the other person's doing to evaluate, is that other person giving me what I need? Because if they're not, I'm going to go find somebody that will. And maybe I'm just better off by myself. Well, you're never going to be better off by yourself because God created you in relationship. So good luck with that. It's not going to happen for you. But it can be a point in your growth spiritually where being by yourself, and I think, Jason, one of the points I just want to make is that's kind of how I feel now is, yeah, I am lonely sometimes, but I am not alone. And spirit, my soul, is beginning to feel the void that was in my heart, right? And so I don't really feel alone, even though I am. So I'm really not struggling and I'm not suffering. But at the point of separation, this is a reenactment of when you fell asleep, literally, and began to dream a dream of separation, a tiny mad idea, that you're separate from God. And it's such a horrible experience because you were created in union, you were created in relationship, that it's like, well, it's a gut punch for sure, right? It's just very hard to think about being separated from love because you see love is in the other person. But no, love comes from within you, and love comes from your soul. Love is what your soul is because God is love and you're an extension of that. So grieving is a part of separation, but it's really a reenactment of the original separation and how we felt when we fell. And some people use the term fell out of grace. We never fell out of grace. You've never been out of the grace of God, but you can imagine that you are, and you can dream about it, and you can experience it in dream, but it's never true. So if you wake up from the dream, you're no longer experiencing separation. You're beginning to return to your normal state of divine nature, which is being joined in unity with God, right? And so there's more love there than you can ever discover in physicalness, because you weren't physicalness to begin with. You are spirit. And so that's the hero's journey. That's what it's all about. So we go through stages, all right? And so I'm going to tell on myself a little bit, but I've had 4 marriages and lots of relationships, and I'm a slow learner. But this relationship was one where I feel like we will love each other forever. And whatever she wants to do is fine with me. And I feel like I would like to think she feels that same way about me. But the other relationships, when I was not spiritually aware, were, first I went to war in my first separation, in my first divorce, and when everything was done, the attorneys are the only ones that made out on it. And then the second marriage, the second divorce was, well, we didn't fight as much, and we didn't get a bunch of attorneys. We kind of did it on our own. But there was still some bitterness and anger at the end of that relationship. In my third divorce, going up the ladder, uh, you know, I got to be honest with you. It was beautiful because we both came to a place, and this woman was inappropriately younger probably by most people's standards for me, younger than me. But I realized that I was holding her back from growing, and that she was kind of holding me back because I was leaning now into a spiritual journey at that point in my life. And this is, 20, 25 years ago, however long that was. And in this last divorce, it was actually beautiful. But now the third divorce is like there was no battle, there was no war, there was no anger. It was just, look, you go do this and I'll do this here. Well, you take everything. No, I don't want it. You take it, and it was really fabulous. And then this last divorce, it really was just an agreement that we and what I was getting from Spirit was, look, this person also had a spiritual assignment. And there are a lot of people that need our help out here, Jason, right? And this person was helping people in her unique way, just like you do in your unique way. And Spirit's working through you with your unique gifts. And that's what I'm doing, working with my unique gifts that Spirit has given me. And I felt like, and kind of got the message, we both need to be working in different parts of the world, so to speak. But there's still going to be some grieving, kids, okay? There's going to be some grieving because it's still a reenactment of the original, separation from God, or the illusion of separation from God. And again, we did not fall from grace. God's grace is with you now, and never leaves you. And so I'm going through now, personally, this transition. This is a transformation. And using Paul Selig's, the guide's work, right? It's a rearticulation, right? It's a rearticulation of understanding who you are, right? I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. And so now what I'm doing is attuning to that vibration, which I love calling it the upper room. And it's a vibrational field, literally, that you are choosing to be in all situations. You're choosing to be in a vibrational field. So being in the upper room is a choice, and it's a vibrational field, but you can't take your bag and baggage there. And so when I'm in that energy and when I'm in that space and I think about my ex-wife, all of my ex-wives, all of my ex-relationships, all of the loves of my life, I see their wholeness, I see their perfection, I see joy for them, and I know that they will never be really separate from me, and I will never be separate from them. All glory to God, hallelujah, amen, right? Behold, we make all things new by waking up to our own divine nature. And all of these relationships are taking me, when I can hold all that energy, and that's the thing, the practice of spirituality is to be able to hold higher and higher consciousness. The body has to adapt to this as well. But to be in that room, if you will, the upper room is the next level, and there's many beyond it, but it is a place here on this planet, in this life, where you can see and love everyone from the mind perspective, if you will, of your divine nature. And there's no judgment in it. There's no grieving. There's no loss in God. Period, period, period.
That's beautiful. How long, or I just shouldn't say because it's going to be different for everybody, but how do you move past the anger and get towards forgiveness? How does that, because let's say either in your situation or my daughter's situation, let's say it wasn't your idea to have it in this way. Let's say, someone left you that you really wanted to be with. How does you get past either that hurt or that anger and move into forgiveness and being able to see the light and see your soul and let your soul breathe?
That's a great question. And being in the field of the egoic mind is like being in a jail cell and you can't find the key. And you're the one that put yourself in there, right? And your ego doesn't really want you out. And it's all about blame. It's all about shaming and guilting and get even with them and, right and wrongness and shoulds and shouldn'ts and all that stupid shit. Because it's just stupid shit. Because it's a construct of a mind that is nothing more than a child. It's just, it's insane, right? But you got to get out of it, right? So, number one, the main thing, and I'll go back again to my little story about 4 divorces. Their first marriage, it was like, oh my God, it took years, right? But I was a child, right, in my 20s. It took years to overcome. And this woman had 2 children with me. And what a gift, right? And my relationship with those children is a testament to that undying love that only God can provide. And I still love the woman. I don't have anything to do with her. I'm not interested in it. My contract is up, right? She did her part perfectly. I did my best, and the lessons were there. So we can't stay in the first grade forever. At some point, we can graduate and go to the second grade. And then from there, we start learning how to learn, right? And that's a big skill. If you can learn how to learn, you can graduate to the 3rd grade, and then the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th, and there's more. There's always more. We are here in lesson only. Now, what I'm sharing with you is what I didn't know until I got some help. And that's what we're here for, is to help you, right? To help our community. Because people that are listening to our message today are already a part of the community, are already on that, they're past the first trailhead or 2 for sure, right? Or they would have clicked away a long time ago,
Right.
right? But man, once you start getting it, you start graduating. And I tell the story, Jason, my grandkids were in the 3rd grade and they had Grandparents' Day. And I went to the school, and it was a really small country school. And so the grandparents were in the school all day, right? And we went to recess, and we kind of hung out with, blah, blah. And I was in the 3rd grade again. It was fantastic. And I was watching the other parents, and they're all standing around talking to each other. Oh, no, we went to the playground, and I'm playing with the kids, man. I'm in the 3rd grade again. I'm loving it, right? I'm loving the kids, and the kids were loving me. And, my grandchildren said, their friends said, man, your grandfather's really cool. It was fun to be in the 3rd grade, but I couldn't be there again. I mean, I wouldn't want to stay there. I mean, I didn't want to go the next day. I mean, just a few hours that day was fun, but I don't live there anymore. I've graduated, right? So we graduate spiritually. So it's a great question you're asking, is that how do we get through these things? And if we have somebody to help us get through these and we get a little spiritual wisdom, in our toolkit, it gets easier, right? Because we're all graduating and we're all on our own journey and we're all defining and designing. Our soul is designing the schools that we go to here, right? And they're all uniquely developed for us individually because we're the one developing it. So you are perfectly where you need to be now, right? And just wisdom of the ages, my brother. I mean, I'm in my 70s, I can't even believe that, right? I mean, I went to a meeting last night because we're starting a new volleyball league. I mean, I'm still in the 3rd grade, right? I mean, I'm still a child, a teenager, and I want to stay active and vibrant physically. But eventually, if we allow ourselves to quit arguing with the journey that we're on and accepting that, wait a minute, I wake up every day and I'm in class. I'm in class right now. I have no idea what we were going to talk about when we got here, but Spirit's coming through today and saying, hey, love yourself enough and quit judging yourself and quit judging other people. And just that one step moves you to a place of integrity. And once you get to a step of integrity, you start having the courage to develop yourself, to get into personal development, spiritual journey, where eventually you learn how to accept, allow, and forgive. Now, you can't teach the ego to forgive, but you can teach the ego to sit down and shut up, right? Because you are in control of the ego. You are in control of your thoughts and what you give your awareness to, the thought system you give your awareness to. And so when you say, sit down and shut up, I'm not going to listen to that right now. I'm going to focus on what am I grateful for? Right? This is I'm just sharing with you what worked for me. Is my pathway of just learning to be grateful for what is. Right? Yes, I'm not married anymore, but I'm not devastated. I'm not horrified. I'm an adult, and I'm going to use this time now not to go seek another relationship and form, but to really seek the only relationship that's truly shown itself to be beneficial to me, and that is, all of them have been beneficial. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing any of my relationships. I'm just saying, more and more now for me, Jason, Spirit is saying, I am here. I have come. I have known. At some point you have to know, you have to realize I am you. And so eventually you give over your mind to dialing it in and tuning it into a new station, a new radio station, a new channel on TV or YouTube, whatever you want to call it. You dial in to a new resonance, a new vibration, and a new way of being. You graduate to the next level.
That's beautiful, Brother T. And I think when we do that and we turn to Spirit and quiet our ego, we fall in love with the soul. We fall in love with God again, and we are realizing God's love is still showing through us. And so when we can put those lower vibrations behind us and look through everything with love, it's easier to forgive and easier to be God's love. And thank you for your message today, Brother T.
I want to tweak that a little bit and say it this way, Jason. You fall in love with yourself. You're not falling in love with God, because God's not out there. God's in here. Your soul is in here. Your soul is you. So when you start giving your soul some attention, right, you start having a new experience, because you are returning to self-realization, a capital S self. You're beginning to make your capital S self, your true divine nature, who you be, again in form, right? Because we have these implants, I'll call them implants, and things in our DNA where I can't teach my cat here to drive my car. Just, it's not going to happen. It's outside of her constructive capacity to understand it. And the ego, default operating system, the thought system of the human mind, the thinking self, our DNA only allows us to see, third dimensionally and slightly beyond that. But it doesn't understand love. So you can't fix the ego, you can't teach the ego how to forgive, but you can tell it to sit down and shut up. Now, when you do that, you're not in a void. You're just no longer giving that self your attention. And I start out this way, Jason. I just say, are you there? And of course, I get answers. Of course I'm here. I don't hear I'm here. I'm here, we're here. And I'm a part of the we. You go from I go to we go. Okay? So you're not getting better at loving something outside of yourself. You're getting better at loving what is already within you. You're getting better at recognizing yourself, and you fall back in love with yourself.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Brother T. Well, I don't have anything else for you today. And my heart goes out to anyone that's watching this that's going through a loss, whether it's a loss of, through that physical person passing away, or that just the loss of them stepping out of your life. But prayers to everyone, and excitement Promise I'll talk to something about something a little bit more upbeat next time. Maybe ruffle some feathers again.
Well,
But,
you probably ruffled some feathers today. You almost ruffled my feathers. So,
well, then I guess I'm doing my job.
You're doing your job, man. Yeah, this is exciting. I think this is, I will just say for myself, this has been a very healing conversation. Thank you for asking the question.
Well,
I am full of gratitude for you, brother. Full of gratitude.
And gratitude is what it's all about. And you mentioned it. It's, when you can start looking at everything through gratitude, it really is self-healing. So, well, Brother T.
Here's the gratitude, man. Yeah.
Here's the gratitude.
Yeah.
And next week, we got more exciting stuff. And I'm going to see you on another episode of The Second Coming. No one to crucify.
No one left to crucify.
No one left to crucify.
Have a great week. Love you all.